So I'm Tyler Dowling. I'm IOI 1325, and
Wow, 1525.
1325.
Okay. I'm George IX, and I'm fortunate enough to be IOI #1. Through no work of my own.
So the first question that we kind of have for you, which is just from like talking with the active chapter right now, nobody really has any inkling of a clue of the reasoning for it. But like, why was Lambda Chi chosen to be like the fraternity that Delta Tau Epsilon became?
Yeah. Okay. I was on that committee, and we started in maybe '62, maybe even '61. There was some talk, and it wasn't always Lambda Chi. We looked at Sigma Chi. Their headquarters is in Evanston, Illinois, at Northwestern. We looked at a couple others. I can't remember their names, and we were trying to find a fit. And I think how it really happened was Bob Norsworthy, classmate of mine, was president of student government, and Lambda Chi came to Ferris, and he happened to be in the president's office, and Lambda Chi people, George Spacek, who was the executive secretary at the time, said, "Is there any groups here that might be a possibility for going national?" Because we were all local fraternities and sororities at the time. So that was the connection. Bob Norsworthy kind of connected us. And then there's a series of trips, great trips, by the way. 5 or 6 guys pile into a car like you do on a road trip, you know. And you'd go, we went down to Indianapolis. George Spacek spent a lot of time with us because he knew we were a pretty good group. And we stayed at his house. He cooked us eggs and steak for breakfast. We'd never had it as a college kid. So we really got to know him well. And then he'd come up and talk back and forth. And I think by the fall of '62, we decided, the fraternity decided to actively seek an affiliation with Lambda Chi. And it wasn't just me, it was 5 other guys that made these road trips, but the rest of the fraternity was very interested in it also. You have kind of different feelings because you have so much pride in your local fraternity, but we knew it wouldn't last forever. And we could see that all the other fraternities on campus were local, and they were starting to look at nationals too. So we thought for longevity, if we wanted to come back to this campus in 20, 30 years, if it was just Delta Tau Epsilon, it wouldn't be there. Nothing to keep it going. You get kids 4 years, and then you get a whole other group, and it can go downhill really fast, but can grow up really fast. So it wasn't any one person, it was a group of people, and we felt a really good relationship with Lambda Chi. And George Spacek probably was the key person that did that. Became very good friends.
I didn't know that the early chapter actually had so much of an interaction with George Spacek. He's actually, the Nationals is kind of trying to go back to what he kind of did as it. So
he was a leader in all Greekdom, whatever you want to call it. But I think our fraternities started to look up and see the things that he was trying to do and to have responsible young men and a brotherhood. The key thing I think a lot of people liked was it's not just for 4 years, and I think that's proven true.
One thing I think you'd enjoy to hear is a high priority in the teaching of the associate members is actually, educating them about the origins of Lambda Chi at Fair State. We go over that there was a local fraternity there before.
Good.
And we have some awesome stuff that recently has been donated. So we have, a nice coat of arms from Delta Town Upsilon. We have 2 blades, I believe is what you guys refer to them as.
Yeah.
And then
We didn't want to call them paddles, because we didn't pad.
yeah. So we make sure that the stuff stays alive and that's remembered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So so there's a notebook that I got in the package of Lambda Chi stuff that I believe that you sent to Steve.
Yeah.
That describes a trip to, I believe, St. Louis. That's the reaction I was looking for. And
that's precious, especially to the guys that wanted it.
And just from the little bit that I read of it, it seems like there was very few times that everyone in the car was sober. Is that accurate, or am I misreading it?
Oh. Yeah, this is all.
I remember one of the documented stops was like, we ran out of beer, we need to stop.
Yeah.
How long was that trip to St. Louis?
It was like a long weekend. It was spring break or something.
Okay.
And there's like 5 of us. And well, I had 2 trips to St. Louis. And I think the first one was, Ferris was playing in the playoffs, the national playoffs, or whatever the league they were in then. And they had a really good team. And so we were sitting in an establishment and we said, let's go. So we all piled in the car, and we didn't realize what we were doing until about the middle of Indiana. So anyway, it was a lot of fun, and we recorded a lot of it in that.
Yeah.
Everybody would write stuff down.
You guys filled up like half a notebook.
Yeah.
With little stuff, and I'm just looking through it, and I'm just like, how has this story not been talked about?
Well, it was just mainly those 4 or 5 guys. So we went to the game, and I think they had 2 games. The second game they got beat. They didn't have shot clocks in those days, so the team they played was like Southwest Oklahoma, and they had won games during the season like 12-8. They stalled the whole game.
Yeah.
And Ferris was a fast break team. So we watched those games. We were the only Ferris spectators there. We stayed right behind the bench. In fact, I think we stayed with the team because they were so happy to see us. And anyway, we had a lot of good memories of it. It was a really boring game because you have a fast break team because the team that stalls. What happened after that was about 2 weeks later, for some reason, can't remember anymore, we went to visit Jim Snyder, who was one of the charter members, and he was in pharmacy school at St. Louis College of Pharmacy.
Yeah.
So the first time we stopped by and saw him, and had a good time with him, and so we came back 2 weeks later, and he didn't know it. And we knocked on his door and said, we couldn't find our way out of town. He just about fell on the floor. So we went there twice. It was a lot of fun.
So, you kind of had an interesting relationship with the fraternity, I feel like, because you were given IOI-1. Is there like any responsibilities that you might have that are different from any other alumni?
No.
No?
It's just over the years I've noticed There's a misconception that I started fraternity. I didn't. I wasn't the president or anything else. At the time, in 1963, when we'd gone through, you go through kind of like a probation period. As a colony, you were a colony. And normally it took 2 or 3 years. They go to a new college and they start a chapter. But we did it in 6 months. It was a record. And we were so well prepared. So we got down probably to the point we didn't realize how big a deal this was. Where they assigned numbers to 200 people all of a sudden. Yeah. And so how they did that, I'm not sure how they really did it. But I know it was kind of like the guys with the most terms of being active would get the really low numbers. So I was tied with Chuck Sarland, who was number 2. And then they had a vote. And either one of us could have won. I didn't do anything special for it because of it. It was just the call in. But since then I've had a feeling some responsibility because all you guys identify yourselves as your RY number. And at that time it wasn't a big deal. But it has become that. And over the years I've seen young students over there and they meet me, maybe it's at a reunion or something, and some of them can't even talk. It's like they're treating me like a god or something. But I think everybody had to learn my name. And,
it was recommended.
Yeah, but it wasn't always that way. I think 20 years ago, before that, they all had to know my name and maybe the first 5.
Well, let me put it this way: it's recommended.
Oh. But they can hardly talk, Yeah. I said, just cool down, I'm not anything special. Just happened to be there at the time.
So, I feel like you might agree that, fraternity life has kind of changed in the time since you were inactive. What do you think is like the biggest difference between the 1960s fraternity life and that of today?
I probably don't know because I don't know what you guys do now. So
that's fair.
It's a gathering of good friends and you become deep friends. I learned a lot from, I was in pharmacy and boy, that's a pretty directed curriculum. You don't learn other things, but I had roommates that were in marketing and printing. They had a printing program then and all kinds of different programs. And I learned from them and hopefully they learned from pharmacy students too.
So, I heard that the house that was on Michigan, that we didn't attain that till, I think the later on in the 60s, is that correct? Or?
It was, we went national in '63, in the spring of '63, and then that fall, they bought the Fairmount House.
Okay, yeah.
And, but I think the fraternity bought that, the national.
Yeah.
And then they rented it to the guys. And it was a beautiful house, and they spent a fair amount of money fixing it all up and everything. It was about that time in the late '60s that colleges and universities developed a new attitude that before then it was called in loco parentis. That meant that the school was in place of the parents.
Okay.
And then they dropped it. And so liberalized all kinds of things.
Yeah.
We couldn't have a party without a chaperone there. you could not drink on Ferris's campus at the time. And if you did, you got caught, you would go out that night, they helped you pack. It was that strict. So, that's a really big change. So after the 70s and that, you didn't have to have a house mother, didn't have to have anything. And I think that in a way it was a shame because, you know, you got a bunch of kids, 18 to 22, going to school, but they're also, you gotta manage a house, and it wasn't done very well a lot.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the line, I don't know what it was, the fraternity gave up that. And the local chapter developed a housing commission. And it was a good idea, but it didn't work that well. Maybe we didn't have strong enough alumni at the time. But I remember going back one time, within 10 years of graduation, and the house was just a mess. It was just terrible. Made me sick, you know. There was pizza stuck on the wall, all the trophies and everything we had. It was just terrible.
So was that right before the big remodel in the late 70s or?
Might have been, yeah.
Okay. So I know that there was a point in the late 70s where an alumni came in and like cut down the chapter size.
Yeah.
That had everybody living in the house, and that a part of that is if they, you know, allowed him to help them, he would get the house redone. And so I have photos from the early 80s of the house right after, or around the early 80s, late 70s, I don't know the exact year, but around the time of the remodel of it right after it got all redone. It looked very nice.
Yeah, okay.
So, to ease your mind on that.
Yeah. I don't know who that person was that made those changes. But
It was
after my time, so.
I believe Scott Dodge.
Oh, it's Scott Dodge.
Yes,
Yeah.
Scott Dodge, IY 588. Yeah. So you've kind of let us know like what you did after college, but for the people watching on Facebook or in the future, what did you do after leaving Ferris? Like what was life for you after?
Oh, okay. Well, I took a job in Clare. I was kind of familiar with Clare. From Clare, there's a bunch of camps. I was active in the Boy Scouts in high school and then
Rotary?
Camp Rotary.
Yeah, I worked staff there 1 year.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I did for about 6 years. So I was familiar with the area, and I was Saginaw. And I thought, well, gee, I like to hunt and fish and all that kind of stuff, and this would be a great place. Well, I didn't really hunt and fish for 10 years after picking that up. But there was a store that was open, and the guy had 2 stores at the time. So I started working for him, and within 3 years I was a stockholder. He gave me a bonus and he'd buy stock with the idea that I'd buy him out. So I worked my butt off, you know, many 12-hour days, sometimes 6-7 days a week, you know. And but I learned about pharmacy, and the guy was my mentor. He was like a dad. And eventually I bought him out in '75. And then we had 3 stores at the time. After that, we opened another store that was in Shepherd. So we had one in Shepherd, Farwell. One time we had 2 in Clare. Then we opened a bigger one in Clare. It might have been one of the bigger stores in Michigan. It was like 16,000, 17,000 square feet. It was a big store. It ended up doing big volume. We had a couple couple of other stores were Hallmark stores. Actually, one gift shop across the lake here, which we sold. So I enjoyed a great career. In the 90s, my daughter joined us, and so did my two sons, and they were graduates of business schools. John went to Alumni College, and then he got an MBA from Northwood. Jeff went to Miami of Ohio, and then he got a MBA at Northwood, and he also got an accounting degree in addition to his human resources. So we all worked together. They worked the business aspect of the store, and you know, pharmacy was kind of separate. I got it so that I would say in the 90s I was involved quite a bit with the Pharmacy Association and boards of pharmacy and that kind of stuff, and so I wasn't out there filling prescriptions every day, but I had a good experience up to that point. So in about 2000, my kids were anxious for me to get out and for them to take over, and so that's what happened.
Are you enjoying retirement?
Yeah, we've been very busy here. You know, they have a lake association. We've been involved in that. Both Margaret and I have been president, and active in our church. Have lots of friends around the lake. In fact, this is a small little community. The town of Neckham is across the lake there. It's only like 300 people, but in the summertime there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people around the lake.
So just I guess we'll finish it up with, is there any words of wisdom from IOI 1 for any actives?
Well, I think the whole fraternity system has changed. You were talking about changing from when I went to school. You know, this thing with, was it Delta or somebody in the last week that there was somebody died from over drinking. Those kind of things are really detrimental to the entire Greek system. It isn't just that fraternity. And I think not just Lambda Chi, but all the fraternities need to recognize that it's, in our days, being in a fraternity was pretty cool. And it may be for some people now, but there's a lot of people that don't care one way or the other about it. I think you have to work through the interfraternity council or whatever to improve that image. That it's not just a party. That, you know, we have 3 children, 11 grandchildren, and now 4 great-grandchildren. And probably all the grandchildren are your ages or up. They're done with college. And not many of them have good opinions of fraternities and sororities. And I think that's kind of sad. You know, maybe, and I thought it was a great movie, the Animal House movie, but, you know, our fraternity was not like that. We had some guys that were kind of like some of them, you know. And they become legends, you know. But, you know, some of those guys are doctors and dentists and everything, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest problem with, Lambda Chi isn't going to do it itself. The whole Greek system needs to address that.
We actually, the current IFC president is Lambda Chi.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so there's a big push to kind of let the community know that we're not a bunch of, degenerates.
Yeah, right, yeah.
We're,
you do.
yeah, and so it's a big, we definitely are doing it in the fraternity. Our big focus when it comes to the in the community, we're trying to just make ourselves be the people that, like, when they see these letters, they see, oh, that's a good, a quality man.
It's a helping hand.
There, I belonged to Kiwanis Club in Clara for 40 years, and then up here, I belonged to the Rotary Club, and it's, in its way, it's similar. They don't have the closeness, but it's a service club. When you say Rotary Club or Kiwanis or Optimist or whatever, you know, that's usually a favorable image. But I know a lot of millennials, they aren't trainers of any kind, so that's what has to be worked on. I'm sure that people down in Indianapolis are very knowledgeable about that. My sons were both Sigma News, and in most campuses, that's known as the jock fraternity. And I don't think they got anywhere near the support and direction that Lambda guy does. I look at their magazines and, yeah, okay, so their jocks, they talk about different campuses and all it was about, you know, Joe Schmo is on the varsity and he scored 18 points and, you know, he's a big hero and that's all they talked about was the jocks and their accomplishments.
I think that's definitely one nice thing to see on our on the social media for Lambda Chi for nationals. A lot of the stuff that is posted there, you know, seeing like a massive fundraiser, like you know somebody or with so and so chapter, you know, raising thousands of dollars for Feeding America or other organizations.
Do you have advisors, faculty advisors?
We have one faculty advisor right now, but I haven't really worked with him directly. I don't know if the president does or not, but we have alumni advisors that are pretty hands-on with helping us and guiding us.
We had 3 or 4 faculty advisors. They come to our meetings, and they were good. There's 2 of them in the pharmacy department, and a couple in marketing or something. They were very helpful, calmed us down. A lot of times, you know, you'd make decisions that were really stupid. They'd say, hey, wait a minute. But they were very, very helpful. So,
Awesome.
I guess that's a good spot to
Beauty.
end the
Thank you so much.
video.